You ever get that feeling, that deep down sense that there's a connection to something much, much bigger than yourself? A hidden language that might be tying everything together from the tiniest atom to the most distant galaxy? Well, today we're diving into a source that explores that very idea, the wild possibility that the universe is in a constant state of communication, and we might just be starting to relearn the language. Okay, so let's get right into it. This source kicks off with a really foundational idea. Communication isn't just our thing. It's not a human invention. It's a universal property of life itself. I mean, think about it. From the chemical signals of plants to the intricate dances of bees, the argument here is that everything is in a constant dialogue. And that idea leads us to the first major concept from this source, that the universe itself is fundamentally communicative. It's not just a collection of random separate objects floating in a void, but a vast, interconnected whole. Now just let that sink in for a second. The source isn't just saying things happen to exist in the universe. It's proposing that they exist in a constant state of interaction, of information exchange. Every particle, every star, every single galaxy is part of this huge, dynamic, cosmic conversation. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the source weaves together ancient philosophy with some cutting-edge science. It brings up the Buddhist concept of Indra's net, this idea of an infinite web where every jewel reflects every other jewel. And then it draws a direct parallel to NASA's own observations of the cosmic web, those massive filaments of dark matter that literally connect galaxies. It's like our modern telescopes are just now catching up to what ancient wisdom already knew. So, of course, this brings the whole cosmic idea right back down to us, to you and me. If there's some kind of universal message being broadcast, how do we tune in? Are we even capable of picking up the signal? Well, the source argues that yes, we absolutely are equipped, and it points to a pretty surprising instrument for this communication, not just our brain, but the entire human body. And it puts a special spotlight right on the heart. Get this. Back in 1991, science made a discovery that this source highlights as being absolutely crucial. Researchers found about 40,000 specialized cells in the heart. These are cardiac neurons that actually form their own complex nervous system, a little brain in our chest that can sense, feel, learn, and even remember, totally independent of the brain in our head. And this is where you see that the whole heart-brain relationship is kind of upside down from what most of us were taught. It's not just a top-down command from the brain. In fact, the source points out that the heart sends way more signals up to the brain than the brain sends down to the heart. And these signals profoundly influence our emotions and even how we perceive reality. But we're not just talking about nerve signals here. It's also about energy. The source brings up research from the Heart Math Institute, which found that the heart's electromagnetic field is dramatically more powerful than the brain's. We're talking up to 60 times greater in amplitude. So here's the kicker. Our emotional state has a physical, measurable signature. When we feel things like gratitude or love, our heart's field becomes smooth and coherent. But when we feel anger or fear, it becomes chaotic and disorganized. And this field isn't just stuck inside of us. It radiates outwards, and it can be detected several meters away. We are, quite literally, broadcasting our feelings into the world around us. This whole idea of an energetic connection, well, that's our bridge into the most mind-bending part of this entire argument. The evidence it pulls from the really strange and wonderful world of quantum physics. At the core of all this is a phenomenon called quantum entanglement. This is when two particles become so deeply linked that they basically act as a single system. Whatever happens to one instantly, and I mean instantly, affects the other, even if they're on opposite sides of the universe. It's so weird that Einstein himself famously called it spooky action at a distance. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. The source points to a real-world experiment in Geneva. Scientists took two entangled twin photons, separated them by 22 kilometers, and then changed the state of one of them. The other photon, it reacted instantly. Not at the speed of light, but in 0 time. This experiment confirmed that this spooky connection is very, very real. Then there's this other experiment they bring up, the phantom DNA experiment. So researchers put a DNA molecule in a vacuum filled with photons, and the photons arranged themselves all around the DNA. But here's the truly wild part. When they took the DNA out, the photons stayed in that organized shape, almost as if the DNA had left behind some kind of energetic blueprint in empty space. So the source pulls all these bizarre examples together to make a really bold claim. Quantum entanglement isn't just a weird little quirk of physics. It's the actual mechanism behind the universe's interconnectedness. It is the universal language. Now, if this language is so fundamental to everything, why aren't we all fluent in it? This is where the source takes let's just say, a controversial turn into history. It proposes that this isn't a new discovery at all, but a rediscovery of knowledge that was intentionally hidden. The source lays out this specific and, pretty explosive historical narrative. It alleges that back in 325 AD, under the Roman Emperor Constantine, dozens of Judeo-Christian texts were either changed or just thrown out completely. And the allegation is that these texts contained explicit teachings about the power of human consciousness to connect with this universal field, and that this incredible knowledge was deliberately suppressed. As evidence for this supposedly lost wisdom, the source points to texts that survived outside of the mainstream, texts like the Gospel of Thomas. It highlights this specific verse, which seems to say pretty directly that when your thought and your emotion become one, they gain the power to affect physical reality. So this is really the central thesis, isn't it? According to this source, speaking this universal language requires more than just thinking positive. It requires a coherent alignment between our thoughts, which happen in the brain, and our emotions, generated in the heart. This union, it argues, is what creates a powerful, focused signal that can actually interact with the quantum field. Okay, but is there any evidence of this on a massive scale? The source brings up data from the Global Consciousness Project. They run a network of random number generators all over the world. And on September 11th, 2001, at exactly 10:30 a.m., right as the world's attention was riveted on this immense tragedy, these generators, which are supposed to be random, showed a massive coordinated spike. The source interprets this as a shift away from randomness, so huge that it suggests a global wave of human consciousness might have physically affected this network. So, to wrap it all up, the source presents this incredibly powerful, if controversial, idea. The universe is one big interconnected web, communicating through a quantum language. The human heart is our main transceiver for that language. And by unifying our thoughts and our emotions, we can actually tap into this field and influence reality, a power it claims that our ancestors understood, but that we have long since forgotten. And this whole thing leaves us with one final and, I think, deeply personal question. If this source is even partially right, if our collective feelings are constantly shaping the world around us through some subtle but powerful energetic field, what kind of world are we all creating together right now?